everyone. I hope you're doing okay. I want to present to you a story of contrasts, of deep, dark, evil wickedness contrasted against someone who's trying to do what's right and just and true and pleasing to the Lord. And I really feel in my heart strongly to address this to young people. So if you're a young person, I'm talking to you. Now I'm 66 years old. So anybody younger than that is a young person, okay? Although it applies to us too. Here's the story. And here's the situation, the contrasts. We have this story of contrasts here. In 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 12, it says, Eli's sons were scoundrels. They had no regard for the Lord. Now that's pretty bad because Eli was the high priest and his sons were priests serving in the temple. And here it tells us that those very priests who were supposed to be taking care of offerings, in fact, I won't read it to you, but verses 13 all the way down to 15 tell us about how the scoundrel guys disrespected God and his ways. They didn't pay any attention to the sacrifices that people were bringing. They had no regard for God's ways. They actually forcefully made demands on the people of God. It says in verse 17 that their sin was very great. So here we have this group of people that are supposed to be spiritual leaders and priests in Israel, and they're totally corrupt, totally wicked, totally off the rails. It says they had no regard for God. And then you have this tiny little verse tucked in there in verse 14, and it says, but Samuel. Samuel was ministering to the Lord. In the midst of the corruption surrounding him, in the midst of his leadership, his peers, his mentors being evil, corrupt, and man, they're sleeping with people. Later on, it talks about how they're sleeping around and doing all kinds of immoral things, all kinds of stuff. In the midst of that, we have this little story of a guy named Samuel who's ministering to the Lord. And I'm here to tell you, I'm specifically talking to Viannca, Zion, Emerson, Olivia, Blake, MJ, Tyler, Julia, Chris, Kirsten, Sophie, Mercy, Isabella, Jacqueline, Talan, Caitlin, Dave. I'm adding to that list Karrington, Sam, Benna, and Andrea. You are my followers. You follow me on Instagram. I'm talking to you. Is it possible for you to live devoted to the Lord in a world that's corrupt? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because Samuel is our example. Samuel was surrounded by perversion. He was surrounded by corruption. He was surrounded by wrong messages, by bad stuff. And it says in verse 21, he grew up in the presence of the Lord. I want to challenge you, young people. You have a choice. We all have a choice. I have a choice. I can grow up in the corruption. I can be privy to the corruption and be a scoundrel and not care about the things of God. Or I can be a Samuel and I can grow in stature with God and with people. So I challenge you. I encourage you. It is possible for you, those of you that I mentioned and those of you that just happen to be watching, it is possible for you to live in a place where you regard the Lord, where you honor the Lord, even though there's no one else around you doing it. Take courage, be lifted up, and realize in this world of contrasts, you can be the light in the darkness. Go with God. Thanks for checking in.